All guests on ZASLOW Show 2.0 brought to us by the official beer of the program. You know we're talking Johnny Cuba, European roots with that Caribbean soul, a refreshing German lager in a can. Go to johnnycuba.us. You can find the nearest location. You pick up a six-pack. Everybody knows what's going on today. College football playoff rankings come out. Nothing else is going on in our country. Make sure you always drink responsibly. And don't forget Johnny Cuba's mantra, stay tranquilo. Joining us now is our pal, Mike Golic Jr., Gojo and Golic, of course, every morning, 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern, DraftKings Network. Golic, good to see you. How are you today?
I'm doing well. I'm trying to stay tranquilo in these definitely untranquilo times.
You got to. Everybody knows how huge today is. Everyone is focused on the college football playoff. Nothing else going on in this country, Golic.
Blinders on right now. That's the way I'm going to treat it all day long. Show me the swing states of Alabama and Indiana. Forget about Pennsylvania and Arizona for a while.
So what's the setup in the Golic household tonight? Because, I've thought about it. Obviously, there's no NBA today because everybody knows if there was an NBA game tonight and someone said, hey, are you voting? I'm like, no, the NBA's on tonight. I can't vote. So there's no NBA tonight.
Yes.
My Florida Panthers are not playing tonight. So I'm just envisioning on the big TV at 7 o'clock in the Zaslow Mansion family room, I'm going to have the college football playoff. I want to see the rankings. And then on the small TV, I'm monitoring that election, all night long. What's the setup in your household this evening?
Yeah, I think it'll be much the same. I'm going to try and focus on the things that are germane to my lifestyle, and then I'm going to have to talk about tomorrow morning, knowing full well Steve Karnacki and the rest of those guys are going to be heading the charge on people asking questions about whatever the hell happens in politics. I'm no use to anybody there. I'm like all the rest of you. I've gone out here. I've done my part. I've voted. Everyone else should too, and make your voice heard. And now I just am to the point where I'm sitting back. And so I'm trying to manage all of the existential dread that comes with any election cycle by just drowning it out with college football like a red-blooded American.
So you, like a lot of probably smart people, have already voted. I have not voted yet because to me, I woke up today, today's election day, I'm going to go vote. I like voting on election day. To me, today is the day, but I feel like you're probably smarter than me that you already took care of this.
You know what? I think it's just less smarter and more I had the ballot available to me at home here. I've got easy drop-off points around me in Southern California. And so it was just such an easy process that I was able to, because I'm usually a procrastinator. With the rest of my life, going all the way back to my time in school, I was a guy that why do it now when I could do it right at the deadline before? When all of my powers, I'm convinced I was smarter at 11 p.m. Eastern on a night before a paper was due or the night before a big test. And it took that for my brain cells to kick in and remember all the information. I guess here is the one area where that didn't apply, where I just didn't want to deal with the rush, because the one thing I figured out that I hate more than anything as an adult, and I will avoid at all costs, any form of a line. I can't stand them. I go to the airport and I see these people standing in a mile-long line to go get their Starbucks. If you're timing it well at the airport, you're not usually in there that long. And I get people need their caffeine fix for different reasons. I'm as addicted as anybody. But I'm sorry, there is no amount of caffeine in the world, in no situation I'm in, that's going to get me to wait in a line 15 people deep. Either game the system and use the Starbucks app like the rest of us, or just swallow your pride and fall asleep on the plane. I can't do lines, especially in a place like the airport, and I don't want to do them today at the polls.
I mean, Golic, is there any? I fly a lot these days too for ESPN Radio College Football Tailgate every week. Is there anything worse than the people who are crowding around the gate when your ticket says you board gate zone 7 and we're boarding gate 2 right now? What are you doing over here?
I know, and you know what? Over the years, I have tried to extend more empathy, understanding that there are some people, like when I see it's an older couple or when I see it's a group of people that might be from a different country, as I recently traveled out of the country and felt that fish out of water feeling, I try and do it there. But it's the people that you can tell, hey, they got the mobile boarding pass on their phone, they've been around the block and flown some, and you're in group 6 trying to go on board with first class. It's like, dog, we all got to work together. There is a decided lack of teamwork in our country when it comes to airports, and people just operating as if they're the only person inside there. It starts at TSA when people go through and don't collect the bins, don't get through in a timely fashion there, and it then continues to transition to the gate area where people just log jam the thing and remove any of the clarity of a situation that could go a lot easier if we all just followed the rules and understood where we were in the order. So I think I am a big team sports guy in general, and I do think that people need to operate much more with a team mindset when it comes to the airport than they do right now.
The bins. Why am I the only one who puts away their bin? Everything would move so much faster. Anyway, so we're talking about traveling. We're talking about your time in school. That's a perfect segue here, Golic. So ESPN Radio College Football Tailgate brings me this weekend to South Bend, all right? Game's kind of shitty. It looked like it was going to be a great game at the start of the season, but nonetheless, like I told him, do not change that game. I don't want to audible. I want to go to South Bend. I've never been to Notre Dame. So, and look, Catholics, convicts, I'm here in Miami. I don't care. I want to visit Notre Dame. So Notre Dame, Florida State, probably the worst team in the country. I'm going this weekend. I figured I got to get Golic Jr. on the show this week. I want some tips. I know nothing about South Bend. I know nothing about the campus except for the Golden Dome. So I'm going to arrive there on Friday morning. What's my MO? And now it's the day before the game and everything. What's my MO when I get there, Golic?
Yeah, Friday's a great time to get there because that was always the point of the week where the buzz starts on campus. And for Notre Dame, listen, they lost that game to Northern Illinois earlier in the season, and I'm sure that a couple of weeks after that were a little bit dead. They weren't sure about what the future might look like, but the way the team has played now and the fact that in an expanded playoff, they've got a legitimate shot, as we'll wait for the rankings tonight, to be a team that's ultimately in the dance when it's all said and done. You're going to see campus start to get that buzz where everyone's in town and all these businesses around campus get their 7 Saturdays during the fall to eat and make hay. I think you got to start off the day, and this is what I always do. I love a campus nostalgia walk because you mentioned the Golden Dome is obviously a fixture. That's the main building on campus, the administrative building and all that, but it exists in an area where Notre Dame's an easy walkable campus. It's not a driving campus. Everyone moves around there walking around bikes, and so you've got the dome right there, which go inside and just look directly up in the middle. Beautiful murals on the inside of the dorm. If you're around there towards the later in the evening, the band comes over and plays inside the main building and does this whole song and dance. There's a drum circle at night where the band goes out and does that. And you're also right next to my favorite spot on campus. So Notre Dame's got their beautiful on-campus basilica. It's where, my brother got married. Plenty of my friends got married. It's a fixture on campus. And it's also right next to the grotto, which is, I think, one of the number one places that people from visiting teams or making their trip there to the first time go to. It's a recreation of the grotto in Lourdes, France. It's this beautiful stone place where you can go and light candles and have a quiet moment to yourself. And on game day, it's always littered with the color of opposing jerseys because no matter where you're coming from, this is probably a place that, hey, if you've got Catholic relatives or you grew up Irish Catholic, you're certainly familiar with. So I'd walk through those spots there. I'd get over and check out Touchdown Jesus, which, if people don't know, is the library at Notre Dame. So that was where I was studying and cramming for those tests, is Touchdown Jesus that faces right at the stadium. You got to start that before you get over to the tailgate lots on Friday and Saturday and start actually getting ready for the debauchery of the games. Go cleanse your soul a little bit.
And tell me a little bit about the stadium. Am I going to be impressed?
Yeah, I think the coolest thing about Notre Dame Stadium, because there was an renovation in 2017 that has it in its current form where they added more of the luxury box seating. The large Jumbotron that's in there has gone on now. And what you'll see, too, is with Notre Dame, they wanted to make sure that if they were going to continue to add to the stadium, that it was also a hub for campus. So the student center, there used to be the LaFortune Student Center, was over more in the central part of campus by the library. Now the new updated student center that's got a Chick-fil-A and all these smoothie places and great places to study is attached right to the stadium. So it is a campus hub. Kids are going there studying, doing things for class, and existing day to day in an arm of the stadium. But the coolest part is, while you're going to see that on the outside, outside. Notre Dame has always been very careful in the way they've expanded stadiums. They did it back in, I think, the 70s or 80s that got it to about 80,000 around the original brick house that Rockne built. But when you look outside in the gates, you can still look directly through. It's like it's cut through to see the original Notre Dame stadium. So from anywhere outside, all those gates, you can look through, and that brick you're seeing is, Four Horsemen, Newt Rockne. That is the OG stadium that you've always got a through line to. And so as Notre Dame's gone through the years and added the modern amenities that come with college football stadiums now, they've still taken great care to make sure that the history and tradition of a place that has so much of it is very easy and very apparent to see for everybody.
And how about the people there, the alumni, the students? Is it a nice little crowd? Are they welcoming to outsiders?
Yes, that is one of the things. At times, I wish they were a little less welcoming to outsiders in certain instances. But no, I think overall, one of the things, Notre Dame, extremely Midwestern, as you'd expect from a place in northern Indiana, but I had a lot of buddies who played for different teams whose families made the trip out when they came and played in South Bend, and it was a cool road game chance for them. And the feedback was always the same, and I did like hearing this from my guys that, you meet in recruiting or that from high school that are playing on other teams, that their families were treated well. Because I know going to other stadiums I won't name here, I had family members and friends that weren't treated well by the locals there and had a few incidents, and you don't get a lot of that. No, we actually never got to play at Ohio State, believe it or not, though. So I'd be curious to see how that would go. But
that's what I've heard, actually. I'll ask because I'm like, the people here are so nice, whatever stadium we're at or whatever campus we're at. And I say, is there any, places you visited and the people are not nice? And consistently the answer is Ohio State fans.
Interesting. Yeah, you won't find that here, is what I can tell you. Is everyone's accommodating. Always look for the yellow vest. The ushers at Notre Dame's campus are among the greatest people on earth. There are still ushers working around Notre Dame Stadium and around the football facilities that are there from when I was there, and they were always my favorite people to say hi to when I go back to see around the field. They're incredibly helpful in finding your way around campus, finding your way around the stadium the day of the event. But people around the tailgate lot are going to be great to you. If they see you for that out-of-towner, they'll rib you generously, but they're always going to try and make sure. There's a lot of pride in people understanding, hey, Notre Dame's a special place. A lot of people come here to cross it off their college football bucket list, and so people are cognizant of trying to make sure that they have a great time while doing so.
Were you in on the move to the 12-team college football playoff? Because I think it has been a massive home run. Just the attention to so many games at this point in the season. The previous playoff, we get to November, you really only got to hone in on a few games. There are so many games every single week that we need to know what's going on now.
Yeah, no, I think originally I'd say indifferent was probably the right label, because I thought ultimately, based on what we had seen, a 10-year sample size of the 4-team playoff, where we rarely had 4 teams capable of winning a national championship. Right. It was usually 2 if we were lucky. We went through these years where Alabama and then Georgia and Ohio State mixed in were these great juggernaut teams. 2019 LSU, the Clemson run with Dabo Swinney. There was usually a couple of teams that were heads and tails above the rest. But in the last couple of seasons, we've seen a little more parity across the sport. Nick Saban exits and Alabama looks more vulnerable, which I think is kind of a proxy for the way everyone's sort of come back down a little bit closer to the pack. But you're right, the side effect that we had talked about that I wasn't sure we were going to really get or what it was going to look like in actuality has been, we have talked about more teams longer. It has given birth to a robust Heisman run for a guy like Ashton Jeanty, who, because Boise State is in the mix for that playoff spot that goes to the highest ranked Group of 5 champion, we're talking about more late into the season, and you still get the healthy mix. Like I heard the people complaining that this is going to water down college football's incredibly valuable regular season and take away from some of these matchups. People are pissed that, Alabama, Georgia wasn't an elimination game, or Texas, Georgia wasn't an elimination game, or Ohio State, Penn State. You got a loser leaves town match with LSU and Alabama facing off in Death Valley this weekend. Yep. You had to wait a month longer, but in reality now, it's the best of both worlds, because now we don't write off all these teams in late September and October when they lose just one game, and we get games at the most critical time of year that start to matter more for this race, that still involve some of the biggest and best brands and rivalries in the sport, which feels increasingly rare in this age of conference realignment.
So, Golic, last night, Monday Night Football, great game. The Buccaneers had a chance to tag the Chiefs at their first loss of the season. You're a former player, so I need the player's perspective in this spot. When the Buccaneers had 1st and goal with under a minute to go and they call timeout. Everybody's got a moment there to think to themselves, okay, if they score here, do you go for two? And I feel like everyone in the world said yes, except for the only guy whose opinion counted, and that was Todd Bowles. As a former player, how does the locker room react to the idea that the coach didn't allow his team to try and win the game?
I think this is one of those spots I always say, and this is kind of like my rule at the blackjack table, like, hitting or staying on 16 is something that's oft debated. The book says to hit on it, but my rule and what I was taught by my dad and what's always kind of been by the book is whatever you do it consistently so that I know what to expect from you at the table. And that's always been the way that I've thought about aggressiveness on fourth down or in some of these situations that have popped up more and more as analytics have come into the sport, is be who you are consistently. It's why you see the Detroit Lions, when Dan Campbell goes for a fake punt early in the game and a critical one against the Vikings, they can overcome it because the team's not surprised by that move here. Much in the same way, I don't think anyone who's been around the Tampa Bay Buccaneers or Todd Bowles was overly surprised by that. Now, you can be disheartened. You saw Baker Mayfield wearing it, the coin toss before overtime, where he knew, God, we gave the ball back to Patrick Mahomes again. Because remember, after that game-tying touchdown, Mahomes had a chance with 30 seconds left and 3 timeouts to go down the field, and the Buccaneers dodged that bullet, but then knew once they got the ball into his hands again, you're only going to stop that guy and that team so many times. So I'm always in favor as a player. You're wired. You're a gladiator in a gladiator sport out there. You want to go out and take what's yours in terms of the win. And so as a player, I would have been disappointed. But again, this is in Todd Bowles' DNA at this point. And so I don't think it's something that, hurts the locker room long term or anything like that. But you feel the weight of a missed opportunity, and I would always rather keep rolling, especially as an offensive player. Let's go win it on our terms after a drive where we just drove down, had them gassed, and were well-oiled at that point of the game.
Interesting. One more for you here, Golic. I know you talked about it this morning. Giannis Antetokounmpo, Miami Heat. You're buying in on those rumors?
You know what? It just seems like the vibes are so off around Milwaukee that I'd buy into almost anything at this point. You come off a summer where you look at this team on paper and go, all right, they went through the necessary growing pains last year that we've seen are almost a requirement for these super teams trying to bring multiple stars together. And maybe you don't qualify the Bucks as a super team bringing Dame over this late in his career is the only add to that. Giannis had been there plenty in the face of that franchise, but it just seemed like, all right, it's harder than we expect to bring a player of that caliber into a roster and have success year one, let alone before you fire Adrian Griffin and the Doc Rivers of it all. But now this summer, like, those guys aren't working out or practicing together at all. You've got still Doc Rivers, who wouldn't wish this on his worst enemy. It just seems like couple that with the poor play to start this season. And if this goes south in a hurry, Giannis is always a guy that's made it abundantly clear, I'm here to keep winning championships. And the minute that no longer aligns, we've watched him hold that over the head of this organization in order to get things done for a while. So I wouldn't rule out anything there, especially with Pat Riley and the Miami Heat that we know are always going to be in the mix and always have a certain level of appeal because of the organizational and institutional advantage that having a guy like that and a coach as good at Spo at the helm always gives you, in addition to selling South Beach to guys.
Golic, excellent job as always. I appreciate the tips about Notre Dame. I feel like I know a thing or two when I get in there on Friday morning. Tell everybody how they can hear you and your father every day. Go ahead.
And one more tip for you while you're around campus there. Rocco's Pizza over near campus. It's down 23, which is the road that kind of cuts through right next to campus. Go to Rocco's Pizza and check that out. Eddy Street Commons is going to be the hub there. O'Rourke's, there's a great ice cream place right there. That's all walkable within campus. Rocco's, you have to drive a little bit, but great pizza, no, like old school mom and pop Italian place by campus. There's a signed copy of Taylor Swift's Fearless above the door, so you know it's stamped by the Queen herself. All great stuff to check out there. You can find us at Gojo and Golic on Twitter, all social media, Monday through Friday, 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern on the DraftKings Network, our YouTube channel, Samsung TV Plus, Roku, all sorts of different streaming platforms in addition to wherever you get your podcasts. So we're trying to be everywhere you are and talking about all the stuff you want to hear.
Great job, Golic. Always love catching up with you. Thanks so much for hanging out today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.